I see you have arrived. I admire your courage. And who am I? Just think of me as your very own personal ghost host. I'm here to tuck you in tonight. So, lock your windows and doors, look in your closet and under your bed, and hold your blankets tight, and prepare for 6 terrifyingly true ghost stories. Our first story of the night comes from a person who was out for a bike ride and discovered that he wasn't alone. We call this one, "A man who I believe was a ghost once helped me."
I once had an encounter where I am sure it must have been a ghost. I have been looking for the right place to share and hope this fits here. It was a few years ago when I was riding my bicycle. I live in a small town in the countryside of Germany, and just outside the town there once was a railway that has since been removed and repurposed as a very long, straight path for cycling and walking. It intersects with local roads on some places. That's where you get on and off. Important later. When I was cycling there, I was all alone. I had headphones on for music, so I would occasionally look back to make sure I wasn't in the way of someone approaching. But there wasn't anyone, and the last intersection was miles behind me. It was autumn, and wet leaves covered the path. I began to slip and tumble, but someone grabbed me until I stabilized. It was another cyclist, an old man on an older bicycle. He didn't say anything except, "Take care," and then accelerated and turned to leave the path on the next upcoming intersection. When I reached it shortly after, I stopped and didn't see him anywhere, unusual since the road from the intersection back to the town was very long and straight. I should have seen him, but he was gone. No one should be able to reach the town on a bicycle in the time it took me to reach the intersection and look. Ever since I have been thinking if that old man was some sort of ghost. He appeared out of the blue as I just checked seconds beforehand if someone was behind me so I could make way. He casually prevented a fall of mine, accelerated to a speed that I never expected from a man of his age, and then seemingly disappeared into thin air behind the next corner. As I said, I live in a small town. I know almost everyone living here, and I have never seen this man before or have seen him since for that matter, as I still regularly cycle or walk on that path. I described the guy to my parents, but still, nobody knew who he was. Whenever I think back, I really doubt that this was a human being.
Well, he sounds like a helpful ghost indeed. And if he wasn't a ghost, well then you just got shown up by an old man. Next we have one from someone that inherited a house and a ghost. It's called the Paranormal Team.
I inherited a house from my grandmother in April of 2020. I took a video in the basement of her home under the advice of a colleague that is convinced that I see people that have passed. I took the video based on the fact that myself and a few family members have seen what appears to be a little boy peering around the doorway in the laundry room. After careful analysis of the video, my coworker and I observed a few different parts of the video where there appears to be ghostly apparitions. I had placed a shoji next to the doorway for privacy to the half bath in the laundry room. After analyzing the video, I observed the face of an old man with white hair looking around the doorway. In the video, you can see the ghost appear. The old man with white hair isn't the only ghost in the house, but he is the only one I have a photo of. I contacted a paranormal team to check out the home. A woman named Corey and a man named Ron came to the house from the paranormal team. They started an EVP session in my living room. Corey started the session by asking, "Are there any spirits that wish to communicate with us today?" Suddenly, the energy in the room changed. It was as if the spirits in the house were frantically trying to be heard. I could literally feel them stampede into the living room where we were sitting. Corey and Ron suddenly covered their ears and said their ears were ringing in pain. I watched as the green light on the EVP meter lit up. I also observed the kitchen cabinet door open without anyone seen in the room. The paranormal team and I communicated with a man that said he used to live in the home. The man said he just visits the home. We asked how many spirits were there and listened as the man, whose name I won't use, and the other spirits in the room counted off to 9. There's a dog, cat, and 7 spirits in the home. They seemed harmless and were notified that I had to do some updates and remodeling in the home. When I let the man and the other spirits know about the remodel, the man said, "That's fine, like I said, I just visit." I even felt the circular presence of the man in front of me. It felt like a warm tunnel. The man asked if he could touch my hand to prove he was there. I said yes. His touch felt like someone touching me, but almost electric. My ears also rang during this part of the investigation. I also thought I heard my grandma's voice, but I am not clear because when I asked for her, she didn't say yes. The investigators said they would come back on Halloween for a full team investigation, but canceled due to more serious cases. I have caught glimpses of full-body people in the house, and other family members have as well. One is a man appearing to be in his 60s with gray thick hair and a tan trench coat. The other a small man with white hair. My brother has seen a young boy, and I have seen a woman with black hair, with short bangs. I asked Corey about shadow people since I had seen them before in the upstairs bedroom. Corey explained that shadow people are ghosts that haven't fully formed. They didn't gather enough energy to look like a person, so they appear in shadow form. Side note, my boyfriend and I were making out on the couch one night and heard a banging on the basement ceiling. We looked downstairs and found no one there. I feel lucky because they aren't a whole ghosts. The worst part is that I never video recorded the EVP session, mostly because I was concerned that the paranormal team would think I was using them. I felt relieved when I got answers from the team. A few months later, I hired an electrician to update my electrical box since the house was built in 1915. The electrician had some questions while he was working in the basement. I went downstairs to talk to him. He asked me if my house is haunted. As we stood in the basement, I could hear the ghosts rustling around. I told him yes, and told the ghosts that the electrician was there to fix the electrical box, so the house won't burn down. I asked them to be courteous, as they always are. No problems for the rest of the day.
Wow, not only do you see dead people, but you touch dead people too. Our next one comes from a minister that has had some experiences that he is not soon to forget. It's called The Minister, the Witch, and the Demon.
I apologize for the long post. I am a Baptist minister, and this did happen. I know how I feel about all of this, but I was wanting some outsider perspective here. My name is Nate, and I work at a factory in Virginia that uses a lot of temporary workers. So there's a constant rotation of people that cycle through. We have all kinds from all kinds of different walks. It was in 2011 or 2012 that I met a young couple that I will call Ben and Lisa. They were both younger, 20 to 21 years old, and they had moved here from New York. Lisa had lived with her father her whole life and had found her mother online and reached out to her. They moved down to Virginia to both meet her mother and to leave behind some of the trouble they had gotten into in New York. Lisa was a practicing witch, and upon meeting her mother found out that her mother and grandmother were both also involved with witchcraft. For reference, I am a Baptist minister, and I always found a minute to bring up faith in conversations, not in an overly pushy way, but more of a general question, and if they wanted to talk more about it, that was fine, and if not, that was fine too. I wasn't going to be annoying about it. We were already stuck at work, and that is annoying enough for us all. Ben was interested, and over the course of the few months he worked, we had a few conversations about my beliefs, his beliefs, our backgrounds, and we became pretty good work friends. Lisa worked in another part of the plant in a place where there was another lady who was a practicing witch, and there was some bad blood between the two. The other lady was someone that my wife grew up around, and she knew us pretty well, but we never fully trusted her. She had been in a relationship with my brother-in-law for a while and treated him pretty horribly. I only bring her up because she plays a small part in what I am about to share. I was up late washing bottles for my son, who was a baby at the time. I let my wife go on to bed, and I stayed up and took care of the bottles and got things ready for the next day. She kept the baby all day, so I figured that it was a fair trade to help her out with all that stuff. I finished about 1 in the morning, and I went to bed. I was asleep, or almost asleep, I don't know, and I felt something slide across the top of the blankets from left foot across my body and come to rest on the right side of the bed beside my head. I heard a voice. It asked,
"What if you looked over and your wife wasn't your wife but was Jane?"
My response was a calm and peaceful. I would unalive her. No idea why it was that extreme. And in my sleep or not sleep, I reached out and grabbed whatever was there and tried to strangle it. Then the thought crossed my mind, "You're unaliving your wife, dummy." I woke up and was still laying on my stomach, but all of my muscles were tense. I was gritting my teeth, and I was uneasy. My wife was still alive, sleeping peacefully beside me. I hadn't moved since I laid down. I shook it off and glanced at the clock. It was 1:30 a.m. I had to get up soon for work, so I went back to an uneventful sleep. The next morning at work, I was going to lunch when I saw Ben. He looked pretty rough, so I asked him if he was okay. He stopped and looked at me and waited for some people to pass by, and he told me he hadn't gotten much sleep last night. I asked him if he was sick because he sounded pretty hoarse. He pulled the collar down on his coat and showed me his neck. He had very deep purple bruising on his throat. I asked him what happened, and he told me the story. I was asleep in bed, and something drugged me out of bed and tried to kill me last night. It was choking me to death, and while it was doing this, my girlfriend said I was growling, or something was growling in the room. There was a voice in my head that said I had 1 week to leave the house, or it would unalive me. Lisa ran and got her mom, and as she left the room, it let go. I asked him about what time it was, and his answer stopped me in my tracks. It was about 1:30 in the morning. When I told him that at 1:30 a.m. I was trying to unalive something in my dream, or not dream, by choking it to death, he was just as disturbed as I was. He asked what it meant, and I told him I didn't know, but if we had a chance to talk later, we should and see what was up. About 2 hours later, I went and got him to help me do another job in the factory, and as soon as I asked him to come with me, I felt something I will never forget. It felt like something was standing right behind me, something evil. I was instantly nauseous and was chilled and felt feverish at the same time. My palms were sweaty, which hardly ever happens to me. It felt evil, wrong, and like it did not like me speaking to Ben. As we worked trying to piece things together, his girlfriend kept coming out, and she was acting super sketchy. She kept whispering in his ear and kept staring at me all weird. That evening I went home with no answers, and it was done until early Friday morning. I was in the kitchen washing bottles. Again, I was almost done when I had a visitor, in the dark kitchen lit only by a crappy small fluorescent bulb. I felt something slip up behind me. It was the same exact thing that happened when I was at work. Breath on my neck, feverish, chills, sweaty palms, and nausea. I chucked the bottle in the sink and told the spirit that it did not belong in my house, that it was a Christian home, and it had no place there. Then, as calm and cool as I could, I turned and walked as fast as I could to the bedroom without looking back. I said a prayer for Ben because the last time I felt that presence was when I talked to him. I felt like he was in danger. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but I found out at work the next day that the previous night Ben at around the same time decided to convert to Christianity. He said that whatever had been bothering him had left. I have no idea what any of this meant or what caused it. I have questioned if it was his girlfriend. Maybe she didn't like the influence I was having and tried to stop it, or if it was the other girl that knew my wife, was trying to cause the two of them, Ben and Lisa, issues, and somehow I got drugged into the middle of it. I do know that it was more than a coincidence, and whatever it was that caused it hasn't been back around.
Wow, talk about reaching out and touching someone. Anyway, our next one involves a family that seems to be getting messed with by a ghost. We call it, stuff was there and then it wasn't.
Back in the 80s, when I was between the ages of 4 and 6 years old, being the youngest of 5, I was often left alone with Mom. Sometimes I would help my mom with some house chores as best as I could, just little kid stuff. Mom was of delicate health, so sometimes she'd keep me busy with a house chore. I particularly liked setting the table. I liked the symmetry of putting a slightly smaller plate in the center of a larger plate, and that larger plate in the center of a little placemat, and the cutlery neatly on its sides. Even more so, I enjoyed setting the large plates because of how I got them to the table when I was little. They were behind some doors near floor level in the kitchen so I could reach them. They were ceramic, the kind that many families only use on special occasions like Christmas. I was aware they were both heavy and fragile, so little me had to be especially careful. Our large plate stack had like 20 to 25 plates, and I would count how many plates we needed, typically 7 unless we had guests, which was often. I could carry 3 to 4 plates at a time without dropping or breaking them. Let's say if I was going to carry 4, I'd slide my hands in the large plate stack between the 4th and 5th plate top to bottom, almost like a human forklift, and carry them on my tiny arms over to the table and slide my arms off in a similar forklift manner. Then I'd go back to the kitchen and get more plates and repeat till enough plates were on the table. Once that was done, I'd put each one on its place one by one. I'll give an example of the weird phenomenon that sometimes would happen. Let's say, needed to set 7 plates on the table, so I opened the door for the plates. I'd slide my arms in, get, let's say 3 plates, take them to the dining room. It was an adjacent room, put my hands on the table, slide my arms off, leaving the plates, turn around, walk back to the kitchen, open the doors again, get 4 more plates on my arms. Go back to the dining room to stack these plates on top of the first 3, but the table would be empty of any plates. So I drop off my 4 on the table, go back to the kitchen, and take 3 more. I remember the plate stack in the kitchen is visibly shorter because of the plates I'd have taken already. But then when I got back to the dining room table carrying more plates, all 7 original plates would be there stacked. And it was too high up for me to stack my new ones on top, so I'd put the newest arrival of plates beside them. I'd feel both confused and relieved that my original 7 plates were on there. Confused, I would set them on top of their mats on their respective places, and then take the extra plates back to the kitchen and put them back in the original spot. I didn't like taking plates back because it was hard to open the little doors while holding plates on my outstretched arms. Sorry for the plate count math, but I figure it's necessary for this story. So I'd take the smaller sized plates, these could grab with my hands directly, and I'd take them to the dining room table. Set the stack on it and then one by one set them on top of the larger plate, but then realize I'd be missing 2 or 3 larger plates. This was confusing because I had put all plates on all mats and taken the extra ones back, making it unlikely that there would be any places missing a large plate. This was confusing for little kindergarten me. Alas, I would correct the number of plates, but sometimes I'd be shunned a bit because it would take me too long to set the table, or at some point I'd drop a plate and was yelled at for not being careful, or they would just say that I was too distracted to complete it properly, or other times once it was fully set and we were ready to eat, it would turn out there'd be a place missing all the dishes or a whole extra place fully set. Granted, I was a little kid and admit at times I might have miscounted, but if I did, it wasn't because I was distracted. It's because of fudging plates disappearing and reappearing, and I was a little kid trying to make sense of it all. This would happen not only with dishes, but also with salt and pepper shakers, paper towels, flatware, etc. It kept on happening on and off for years till I moved out when I was about to turn 18. At that time, even my then girlfriend told me once that this happened to her while helping me set the table at my house. She would be confused, like I was sure I had brought all the plates already, and I told her, yeah, that happens here. Just get some more. It would happen with other stuff too, if you were getting ready with snacks to watch a movie, or moving school stuff to a desk to do homework, or simply packing for a trip. Or even getting ready to brush your teeth. You'd have your toothbrush next to the sink, open the toothpaste, and find your toothbrush in another room or back on its toothbrush container. You might just call this being distracted, and I would agree. Heck, as a natural skeptic, I tend to look for a scientific explanation first, even if it's unlikely. But then Grandma would be in the bathroom and yell, asking who took her toothbrush. Usually it didn't leave a feeling or fear so much as confusion. Fear happened when creepier stuff occurred, but when this phenomenon happened, oftentimes there would just be a feeling of unease. Other times it would be accompanied by phantom whispers or shadows in the corner of your eye. That crap was scary. Don't think that it always worked out. things didn't always fix themselves by the end of a task. Sometimes said task had to be MacGyvered to completion or abandoned because a main item just didn't reappear back or wasn't found on time. Sometimes we'd find them days later. More than once did I go to bed just to find plates under my covers, or it was found in a very odd place. Like ketchup in the garage, plates in the front yard, or hair gel in the car trunk. Was I absent-minded to miscount at times, or place stuff somewhere else? Maybe. We all do a bit of klepto when we're distracted, but I sure as hell didn't make stuff disappear, and I'm not the only one in the household this happened to. I don't know if it's exactly the same phenomenon, but one of the scariest experiences for me was, I was sitting in the dining room with a cup of coffee next to me. I must have been 16 or so. It was late. I already had the heebie-jeebies that night, as I often did whenever alone in a room in that house, but I was doing homework. At some point I was rubbing my face and I felt or heard my coffee cup being taken away. And I thought it was my mom, because I heard her loud slipper drag walk approach me, and she'd be the only one to tend to me at that time, and I said, "Wait, I'm not done with that." As I looked up I saw no one. Then I heard stuff dropped in the kitchen sink. I ran over and saw my coffee cup and spoon in the sink. I noped right out of there to my mom's room and stayed with her till the rest of the family got back from bowling night.
I'm so sorry, but I just think that's sort of funny. Waking up next to the ketchup or toothpaste. Wait, the ghost didn't mess with the toilet paper, did he? Because that crap wouldn't be funny at all. Our next tale of terror is from someone that goes on a bit of a ghost hunt, only to discover that the fun doesn't always end, just because the ghost hunt did. It's called, It Followed Me Home.
This past weekend, my husband and I tagged along with 2 Ohio paranormal investigation teams to check out Helltown in Ohio. We ended up officially joining one of the teams, so I'm excited for future adventures. Anyways, for anyone familiar, our research was conducted in the barn. And for the unfamiliar people, the barn is one of the few structures still standing, and it's located in between a huge field and the woods. Things were going pretty smooth until a few hours in, things started picking up. And we actually had a few decent things happen. Things started picking up when the whole group, 7 of us total, gathered in a small room stall area to conduct an EVP session. As everyone was standing completely still and quiet, everyone could hear someone walking around outside of the room, and a few of us heard voices. We originally thought some other investigators showed up, but when we went out, no one was in the barn or the field outside of it. My husband and a couple other people went downstairs to look, and plain as day heard whistling. If you know, you know. I've conditioned my husband to know the rules, but he volunteered as tribute to go out and look around. Luckily, nothing happened and we couldn't find the source of the whistle, but we decided to do another EVP down there. As we're all standing silent again, everyone starts seeing shadows running past the windows and gaps between the boards and the walls. After everyone calmed down from that, we decided to try to get one more EVP session in the upstairs room before we packed up to head out. As soon as we started once again, we could hear someone walking around. I got to the point I was so spooked that I was done and wanted to go home. So we all gathered our stuff and as a group started the 20-minute walk back to our cars. Before we left the area, we stopped and did a spirit box session. And all told the spirits they weren't allowed to go home with us. Evidently, that didn't work. Because the night before last, my sister came down and said she could hear someone walking around her room on the other side of the curtains she has put up. The floor is really creaky, so it's hard to miss footsteps. Then last night, I woke up at 3 to use the bathroom, and as I was laying there trying to fall back asleep, I heard someone running back and forth across my house, at least 3 to 4 times. Then heard what sounded like a heavy dresser being pushed across a wood floor. Mind you, I have all carpeted floors. I was terrified and almost woke my husband up to look around. After a few minutes of silence, I got the courage to see if one of my kids was up, but they were all passed out snoring. I cleansed my house today and sounded like a crazy person screaming at whatever it is to get out. So we'll see how things go tonight. If you made it all the way through, thanks for reading, and I hope you enjoyed it.
At 3? Wow, that's the problem with most ghosts. They are so insensitive. I mean, sure, they're no longer alive, so they don't need sleep, but the living definitely does. That's why when I haunt a place, I do all my haunting at like mid-afternoon. I mean, I may be a ghost, but I don't have to be a dick about it. Our last story of the night comes from a guy who, while at his friend's house, sees something he can't explain. We call it My One Experience.
I'm a 37-year-old man who is interested by the supernatural, but have only ever had one small incident potentially involving it. And this is it. So, to set the scene. It was 2004, I was 17 years old and at a friend's house who had recently gone through some tragic events. I won't go into it too much as don't want to disrespect them, but there was tragic loss of life of younger family members and older in a very short space of time. Fast forward a few months, and I am at my friend's house. It was a dark winter's evening, and his mom and dad went out somewhere in their car, leaving us with the house to ourselves. Me and my friend were in a room upstairs, probably playing Football Manager, and I started being a bit silly as I was under the impression we were alone in the house, and I guess I just had a sudden burst of energy. His parents were nice people, but also very strict. I'd let my guard down as I knew they were out and was doing something silly like jumping up and down on the bed whilst it was my friend's turn on the game. I can't remember exactly, but it was something across these lines. The door to the room we were in was open and the lights were off on the upstairs landing. We had a lamp on in the room we were in, and that was the only light in the area. All of a sudden, I saw a tall, skinny figure go across the landing from one room to another. The figure very much represented his mom's build, so I froze and felt embarrassed that she had witnessed me being silly jumping on the bed in the spare room we were in. I assumed they must have come home without us noticing. Not unheard of in their house, as it was brand new and not very creaky or anything. A few moments passed, and I asked my friend if his parents were back. He replied confidently, "No, I don't think so." We checked out of the window, and the car was still gone. My body went cold, hairs stood up, etc. I was so sure that I had seen somebody. I told my friend, and he seemed spooked too, but I was worried I would disrespect the recent tragic events, so didn't go too much into it with him. But I have honestly never felt so spooked about anything in my life. My friend asked me about this again in the next week or so, as he claimed he too saw something. But as the tragic events were still so raw, we just didn't go much further into it at all. It was just that 100% embarrassed feeling that I had that stayed with me. The feeling that his parents had seen me acting a fool. And the emotions of this feeling turning into, well, what the fudge was that then, is the freakiest thing I've ever witnessed, and hopefully ever will. Thanks for reading, and I look forward to your thoughts on it.
Wow, that one experience would be more than enough for most people. That was some scary stuff tonight, wasn't it? But do you know what is not scary? Hitting like, subscribe, and sharing this video. It'll really help us keep the ghosts at bay. And of course, if any of you have a story to share, then by all means, drop me a line in the comments. But I do want to thank you for stopping by, and I hope the stories we told won't be giving you too many bad dreams. But if they do, then maybe you shouldn't run from them. After all, sometimes it's better to embrace your nightmares